We are officially starting this IG Live, known as Geography Equals Confidence. And I'm going to start right off, everybody, with a bad joke. Yep, I'm making a bad joke. I'm saying it ahead of time. It is a bad joke. So way back in the day when I was a kid, they had this joke book, long before cancel culture, long before we decided certain things were probably not the best way to go about telling certain stuff. But I still think it's a funny joke today just because it's funny for anybody. But they deemed it as a Polish joke. Blah, 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 ha, ha, ha. Doesn't matter. But did you hear about the Polish guy that found out that almost 100% of accidents when you're driving happen within 5 miles of where you lived? So he moved. Now, my point about that, hopefully you're smiling a little bit, so he moved, is that when you ponder the base root of that joke, the actual joke is him not getting moving. However, hey Mickey, happy Monday. But the real point of the joke is behind it, is that's an actual statistical fact, you guys. Most accidents that people get into driving actually occur near where they live. Now, we've all heard familiarity breeds contempt. I also am someone who believes that familiarity breeds confidence. Thanks, Don. But one of the things that you find in familiarity and confidence in this profession, if you've never written this down, maybe write this down. Shit I don't have to worry about or think about. This is my big thing about geography, and I know that there are people who are going to see this who live in smaller towns and people who live in Los Angeles or people who live elsewhere. And for all you guys that are here right now, and for those that wind up listening who either live in New York, Chicago, in a major market, London, wherever it may be, where what we would call the geographical locations or potential locations to have to go in our career are expansive, cool, that's one. I started in Atlanta in the mid to late 80s, and there were maybe 6 or 7 places that you would say you would have to go. That's a bit larger now, but for those who live in a small town, this still matters, because the whole point about confidence, and I've used this as an acting metaphor for years in terms of skill set. You can give me a 3-page scene, I don't care what it says, and if I ask you to do that scene in a different room of your house, that scene should feel a little different. Why? Because the environment of where we sit changes our mind. It changes our essence. It's a cellular minutia thing, yet we all are willing to say less is more when we want to talk about going to acting class, but we don't want to then also align that with, and your environment changes a little bit of the less is more because it's minutia. Well, that's my entire point about geography and this profession. When we don't know, number one, where we're going 100% without thinking about it, when we don't know how to get there 100% without thinking about it. I don't care about GPS. GPS still requires your mind to be focused on what it's telling you to do. When we don't know where to park, especially in bad cities like LA where you have to read 17 parking signs to figure out what 30-minute span you get to be on the street, when you don't know where to park, that's something you have to consider. I will go even further. To entrance of a studio or a building, I will go even further. Where the front door inside that building may be, I will go even further what the interior of that office may be like when you walk into it. See, this is the point, guys. When you live in your house, I don't care if it's your childhood house, I don't care if it's your house today. I make Stevie Wonder jokes all the time just because it's funny, and I love Stevie Wonder, Superstition, one of the greatest songs of all time. But that's not the point. The point is you could get around your house with your eyes closed after you've lived there long enough. You could find shit in your car because you've driven it long enough. There's a whole thing and all of those things have a form of the word geography in them. Where is something? Donde está? Where's it at? This, you guys, is the engine that runs this engine inside of us as an actor. And it doesn't matter to me, and those of you who know me well enough by now know, I don't care if you're just going to a meeting. I don't care if you're going to an industry function. And especially when you're going to an audition or callback. And I know this is being recorded at a time when the physical in-person part of our lives as actors has been vastly diminished since 3/15/20. I get it. And we're coming out of 3/15/22. And no, I don't necessarily think the acting world globally is going to snap back anytime soon with everything being in person. But a lot of it will at some point. That's why this still matters. And it will always matter. Same as if, let's say you're having a meeting that's out at a location. My point will always be and has been for decades. If you have to stop, or I should say, the more you have to stop and think about, wonder about, question, get concerned you might not understand, the worse off to me, and or I would say you're doing unnecessary fracturing of your focus as an actor. And that's what this entire conversation is about. Focus. Because there's so many things. That's why familiarity breeds confidence, but it also, in sometimes relationships, breeds contempt. In this conversation, the familiarity of knowing exactly what you're doing, where you're going, where it is, where you're going to park, how you're going to get there. Here's another one for you. How long it will take you to walk from point A to point B. Point A being your car or the train stop or wherever you may be going. Certainly in Europe a lot more times than obviously New York, Chicago. Maybe it's a train stop. I don't care. But if you've never been someplace before and you have a time you're supposed to show up somewhere and you have not either considered, really sussed it out, to use an Australian phrase, or actually know it, which is my thing. Old cliche that everybody knows, knowledge is power. This is what I'm talking about, but I'm talking about the knowledge of geography. When you don't really know how long it's going to get, I say it all the time. Murphy's Law, and then there's Actors Murphy's Law. And Actors Murphy's Law is, no matter where you're going, if you're running just a few minutes late, yes, and see, look, Will's already read part of my book because I dedicate an entire chapter to this. It's called Campus Orientation. And Will, you're about 3 minutes ahead of me, but that's great. Because this is my point. Why is it when you start at a company, and it's a fairly large company with a job, and there's a big building, and why is it that they sometimes somebody gives you a walkthrough? Why do we have an employee handbook? And why do they have freshmen at universities have a campus orientation? It's really, dry run. It's really simple. And most of the time, it's actually done for safety, which is my exact entire point of this whole conversation, guys. I know a lot of y'all think, I got it, Kev, and I'm with you. But do you really, to the nth degree? Do you have it? Because I can guarantee you, Actors Murphy's Law is as soon as you think you're going to have time to sit and prepare yourself wherever it is you're going, that's the day when you forget where you're headed, or you made a wrong turn, or my favorite part about Los Angeles or any major city, even medium major markets, Miami, Dallas, where I'm from, Nashville, which is no longer the city it used to be. Then that's the day they're doing construction on that road that's the one way that you knew how to get there, and all of a sudden, and we don't tend to pull over, which we should, now all of a sudden you're trying to figure out what GPS or Wave is telling you, and it's like, shit, I got to turn left, and the thing, I want to get what I just did for you, and elevate my pace, and get myself up to that idle, that shit. That's what you don't want to have when you're going to do anything as an actor. Because, guys, this is our mechanism. And I mean, most of y'all know me at least a little bit, well enough. Yeah. I mean, holy shit, Alana. Going to set is the absolute money part of this. Because who knows? I mean, if you're going to set and it's not a studio, and even if you are going to a studio, even if you have a drive on, all of those factors can change. That's why, I mean, they added 2 more gates at Warner Brothers 15 years ago. And I remember for 2 or 3 years watching people talk about how they didn't know where to go. And they didn't know how to park across the street from Forest Lawn. Well, guys, this is any place in the world. It doesn't matter if it's a studio in Melbourne or a studio in Sydney or a studio in Paris. It doesn't matter. If you don't know exactly where you're going, exactly how to get there, exactly how to pull up and be in the place you're supposed to be before you go in to what is far too often for us a really limited amount of opportunities. The last thing you want, at least I think the last thing you want, is for you to be in your car afterwards going, damn it, that could have gone better, but my mind was still hurried or harried based on trying to simply get in position. You could use Olympic athlete analogies. You could use all kinds of things. Mental preparedness. Boy Scouts, be prepared. There you go. That whole concept gets lost a lot on actors. And yes, Murray, I certainly agree with going way ahead of time. What I'm proposing today, and I'm even talking about when we go back to in-person auditions, and at least I don't know about around the world, but we'll probably get it back probably by the end of summer. We might be back to about 50% in-person commercial auditions because people like Ross Lacey are really pushing the envelope to get people back in the room. But that's why I'm saying, Murray, it's even more than just knowing the address or maybe where to park. Do you know the entrance to the building? Do you know what the building is going to be like when you get there? Way back in the day in the Actors Network, I was the first person who ever did this. I literally created conversations called audition scenarios and callback scenarios because of needing to know what the inside of the room was going to be like when your physical body walked in, how small it was or how vast it was, and how you would prepare yourself in terms of where you would arrive at your starting place. Now, some of that has altered because of the fact that we digitally record auditions and have a long time before this pandemic. So typically, when you walk into any space, there's a camera, that's a tripod, and you can clearly see, well, I'm going to be on the other side of that. But still, you don't know how small a room might be unless you're used to it. This is my entire point about geography, is just another way in an actor's life to look at the word confidence. Because even if you have extra time, even if you go way ahead of time, even if you have all things, what possible elements to keep your mind calm and not in any frame other than what I need to do in this moment in time. Any of that is my entire point about geography. You just want to try to remove as often as you can the possibilities of confusion. That is unequivocally 1,000,000,000%. The moral of this story is that's what you want to do. You want to remove that as often as you can. And here's my thing. So, my question is, some of the folks who are here who are members of the Actors Network know that I used to say this all the time. When you are forced to go drive someplace, I don't even care if you're going on a personal errand, going to visit a friend across town, it doesn't make any difference to me. My question and my statements way back then, going all the way back to the early 90s, is there any place near where you have now had to go geographically, again, by train, by car, I don't care how you're getting there, but is there any place, maybe actually while you're still on foot, or any place where you're actually driving to, that you can take a moment and just go by it. Familiarize yourself with it a little bit further. Hey, Sonia, nice to see you. welcome in. Oof, what time is it in Italy? 3 o'clock maybe, 3 p.m., 15, maybe somewhere around 15. Welcome in. No, it's not 15, it's more like 18. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm on crack. Welcome in, Sonia. It doesn't matter to me. Take advantage, especially now when we go out less because of COVID. Take advantage of when you're out to go see if you can just spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just a little something to go check out some place that you might have to go someday. This is my whole thing that evolves from target lists. This is my whole thing that evolves from being a person who was very successful at doing drop-offs for well over a decade. This is the entire 6 p.m. Yeah, there we go. 9 hours. I knew it was around there. I'll be in Italy in early July. Whee! Briefly. So doesn't matter where you're going, guys. Take advantage of the idea of geography, please, because it is a huge concern of mine that we don't realize. This is my bigger thing. If you don't practice anything, you're not going to be proficient at it. It's just the way life is. So when I talk about treating your career like a hobby or a career, this is the same thing. We tend to have very, 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 very extremely hobby-oriented, meaning sporadic, occasional. We tend to have that when it comes to our geography, which vastly limits our familiarity with anything. Address, place, interior, the whole nine. And the more your mind has to adjust on the fly, this is my concern, on the fly, or you get hit with something unexpected, the more likely in the moment, be it an audition or a meeting or a conversation or, Alana, as you said, going to set. If it has anything to do with disrupting your mind, then your focus at that moment is going to also be disrupted. And that is my concern. And it has been for decades. Why? Why did Kevin E. decide to suddenly write about this in his book? Why does Kevin E. talk about this? Because it happened to me. That's why. Because, again, I'm a genuine, nice guy, but I'm still a smartass. I'm a genuine, nice guy, and I care, but I still can be a little cocky. I know, shocker, ha. And so what do you think I was like 25 years ago? I mean, I was a guy who was like, and this is back in the Thomas Guide days in Los Angeles when we didn't even have cell phones or GPS. But part of that taught me on the first time I went to Sony Studios or went someplace where I thought I'd given myself, like Murray and Alana have said, I thought I gave myself enough time. I thought I knew traffic well enough. I thought I knew where I was going. I know where the studio is until you don't have a drive on and you have to try to find some place to park. And the place to park is 5 minutes further away than you thought. And here's the most important part. Once I got onto the lot, I didn't even know how far away the building I was supposed to get to was. That's correct. Cost you a great job. And we don't ever want to admit that, Dawn. We don't want to admit that I didn't do something, or I could have been a little more professional or taken a little more time and simply better prepared myself. I mean, we talk about preparing as actors. Most of the time, you guys, the foundation of my book, the foundation of everything I discuss actually is about preparing yourself as a human being. That's a huge part of what this is about. And this is why, this is my point. Again, Aaron, you haven't known me as long, but Aaron, I mean, you at least came to a few things at the conservatory when I spoke. But for 3+ decades now, people talk about the business of show business, and this is literally a video that I share in conversation with Paul on the 3rd playlist of the YouTube channel, which again, please, if you haven't subscribed, go subscribe. Get 10 people this week to subscribe because I got hundreds of videos coming. And by the way, there's a new point that you'll see up on the YouTube channel. It's new content. I'm going to put new content up every Tuesday, Thursday. I'm just going to keep it consistent so you guys can get used to it. But this was a whole thing that I've spent a good percentage of my career discussing with actors. It's part of what made the Actors Network successful is we look at the business of show business and we tend to narrow it down to like 7 things. And it's like, no, it's not 7 things. There's a whole litany of things as human beings that we have to deal with that go far beyond the decisions I've made in my mind, my heart, and my gut about how I'm going to perform this character in this audition or on set. And my whole point about geography is, that's the thing that I want you to be able to focus on and never get distracted on the way until you're right in the moment of actually doing it. That's my entire desire. Man, I'd be in a waiting room, and I guarantee you it's happened to you. Either you were this person or you were sitting there when this person walked in and they looked like they just finished running a marathon. And they kind of banged in the door and they were all harried and their hair was going sideways. And in Los Angeles, the first comment people make is, "Oh my God, traffic." I'm like, traffic is not an excuse. Ever. Ever. Traffic is never an excuse. "Oh my God, I couldn't find the building." No one gives a shit. This is when people think in their head, well, that's not very intelligent. And it's not. And this is why they have campus orientations at universities. And the irony is, and they do it at companies, and the irony is it's one word. Now, we think it's because of familiarity. We think it's because we want the kids to know where they're going or the new employee to know where they're going. No. It's actually could be a metaphor for this entire conversation. I wonder if I tell you what, I'm going to hold for 30 seconds. Always be leaving. You got it, Tony. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm going to give you guys 30 seconds, and I want to see if somebody can think and type out the word that is the metaphor to why universities do campus orientations and big companies do walk-arounds. One word, and it's not what you're thinking, so I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Here it goes. I'm watching the clock. 30 seconds. See if somebody can type in the one word. Okay, after 20 seconds, I'm going to give you the letter that starts the word. Starts with an S. Anybody? You want to give it a shot? Come on, somebody commit. Come on. Think about it. It's a metaphor for this whole conversation because what I want, yes, Tony Boldy, right before he leaves, you are correct. Safety. They don't want anybody to not understand the ground upon which they are now, quote unquote, living or working, because they want to help you avoid safety issues. That is correct. Well, if you put safety in the thesaurus, what's going to come up? The word protect. And what this conversation, guys, is about is protecting you as an artistic, right-brained person who's going to do something that involves your emotions. It involves your state of being. This is the whole point, Aaron, that I've made for years. That's why the next 2 weeks, the next 6 topics I'm doing are a little less tangible and tactile, and they're a lot more philosophical and psychological because you got to balance yourself with these 2 things. I mean, yes, I get that this is a business, and yes, there's a ton of things for us to do, but there's also a ton of things right here, Murray. This is the governing body to how this reacts and what comes out of our mouth. This is the governing body to how we handle what goes on from here to here. And when your mind is not right, when your mind is jumbled, frantic, frazzled, I can just go down the list. Your presence, we talk about it all the time as actors. But yes, Dawn, you're correct. But I mean safety and security. Safety is transcendent for me for inclusive of security, yes. But how calm, how chill is having confidence about what you're doing and where you're going? We do so many things like that sometimes we lose our keys and we're looking for our keys and they're in our hand because we do it by rote. We do it by habit. We wander through our house by habit. We drive to our job or our acting class. We go tons of places. How many people here have had a busy day or a busy week, or for me, just almost every other day for the last 35 years? And sometimes it could be late at night, and you're actually driving properly, and you get to where you're going, but you actually can't remember that you made all the correct turns. That's how rote we get with stuff that we are familiar with in terms of going places. Now, no, you don't have to get that rote with some of the actor locations and some of the places you can be, but man, just simply don't have it be completely unknown. Just don't. You may not necessarily live in the city that you live in for very long. You may be the new kid in town. You may have been in Los Angeles and now you've departed back to someplace else. You may have been someplace else and you come to LA. This is what I used to do. The first 2 years that I lived here, I used to get in my car, literally, when I would get off work from my restaurant job at 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the morning, and I drove around the city. I'm not saying this to you. I'm not presenting this topic because I just made the shit up. I'm talking to you about it because I did it. And LA at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday, even back then, was an easy city to get around. LA is just north, south, east, west. It's a grid. It's not hard. There's just too many people and too many cars. But to learn the freeway system and to learn the street system, I mean, there was a heyday in the Actors Network where you could have given me an address on Melrose and I could have told you the cross street. I probably can't now. Probably would miss it by a street or two. But that's because I didn't want to be confused. This whole point is unsure and confused would be the exact same analogy to, which I'm an advocate of, have 2 or 3 ways to do your audition, but make sure you have one that is absolutely the first one you're going to do. That's your primary. And if somebody gives you direction on it, then you have a couple of other ways to go, and maybe one of them is towards the direction they just gave you. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to have 3 ways to do an audition and you go in and you don't really do any one of them. You just kind of do some amalgam of all 3. That ain't going to work. So, wow. Yeah, Will, I can't tell you, man. That's being able to drive around during COVID would have been basically even less traffic than what I drove around in at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday in the late 80s. But yeah, you know, I tell people all the time in Los Angeles, if you want to do commercials, first place you go, 200 South. Well, I don't have an audition. I don't give a shit. Just go. Look at the streets, La Brea, 2nd, 3rd, Ralph's. Where am I going to park? Get out of your car. Walk down the sidewalk. Find the damn front door, which doesn't have a sign on it. Walk your way up and just stand in the lobby and just feel the space, man. Because then the first time you have an audition there, it won't be new. There's a sense of belonging. There is a sense of peace and calm, Don. Yes. There's a sense of that when you have a sense of the environment you're headed to, and you have a sense. A campus can be as 4 feet by 4 feet. It doesn't have to be 40,000 square feet by 40,000 square feet or 10 by 12. It's just confidence in your surroundings. That's all it is. So I'm sharing with you. I'm sure it's something that's always been in the back of your head. I'm sure it's something you're aware of. Cool. But I'm just challenging you guys watching today or in the future, no matter where you live, no matter how many possible venues there are. Maybe in your town, I'll wrap up on this, there's only, 2 theaters, 3 agencies and 1 place where they hold auditions. Okay. I don't care. No one backwards and forwards. Backwards and forwards. All right? That is it on geography, ... equals confidence. You guys have a great Monday, and I will see y'all on Hump Day on Wednesday for another Business of Show Business psychological, philosophical conversation. Thanks, y'all, for being here. Please send people to the YouTube channel. All right. See you guys soon.